They think they're taking away Donald Trump's greatest tool, which is being able to go into an arena and fill it with 50,000 people every single time, right? So they will, and you watch, they'll milk it every single day between now and November 3rd. And guess what? After November 3rd, coronavirus will magically all of a sudden go away and disappear, and everybody will be able to reopen.
Eric Trump on Fox News last night suggesting it was Democrats who were keeping President Trump off the campaign trail. One of the things we're going to talk about now on our roundtable, joined by Christie, former Republican governor of New Jersey, Rahm Emanuel, former mayor of Chicago, also chief of staff to President Obama, former member of Congress, the CEO of Democracy for America, Yvette Simpson, and Republican strategist Sarah Fagan, who was also White House political director under President George W. Bush. Sarah, thank you for joining us this morning. Chris, let me begin with you. That was sort of a new front opened up by Eric Trump last night. Now it's Democrats who are preventing the president from holding rallies. I think it's the CDC that suggested you can't fill up stadiums right now with people.
You know, George, what I think we really need to be focused on, both as a country and for my fellow Republicans, is the suffering that's going on for folks who are economically displaced. We are seeing statistics now of increased drug addiction, increased domestic violence in a very serious way, and increased suicides. We need to find a balance between what we're doing on the science side, as people are calling it, but also what effect this is having on people's health and well-being. We have to balance between the victims of the coronavirus and the victims of the shutdown. And that's what we should be really focused on. We'll have plenty of time for campaigning, I believe, in the fall. But right now, what we need to be focused on is getting people back to an American way of life and doing that in a way that makes sense and is in a balanced way, not overbalanced towards this shutdown, which I think, is causing enormous damage. Forget about just economically, George. It's causing enormous damage psychologically to the American people and physically to them with the mental health problems that are being caused by this.
Which governors are getting the balance right? Chris,
well,
go ahead.
I think you're starting to
first
see a number of them. For instance, I think, sure, George, I think that the first, there's a number of them that are getting it right. So if you look at Governor Polis in Colorado, I think he's done a very good job on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, I think you're seeing Larry Hogan hit a very good balance from the state of Maryland. And so those are two examples of people who I think are getting it right from each party. And they're starting to move in that direction. But we've got to start to move more quickly in that direction, George. We've had an overbalance, in my view, towards the epidemiology side and less of a consideration for the real mental health effects that this is having on the American people and the long-term impact that that will have both on additional deaths and on how our country is going to be able to come back to its way of life.
Rahm Emanuel, do you agree that overall things have been out of balance?
Well, look, here's what I would say about what Chris said is he's basically saying that the White House is too much about conflict and not enough about compassion. And I would agree with him on that. And I think on the Democratic side, I'm messaging, we look a little too much messaging, too much about resistance about reopening, too much about reluctance about reopening, and we should go to a message of rebuilding America. If the president wants to talk about reopening, we want to talk about rebuilding America and the relief. Let's take the unemployed. If you're unemployed in the service sector, JCPenney, some of these others, those jobs aren't coming back. So we're going to give you a coupon. Go become a computer coder in 6 months. We'll pay for it. You don't have to pay a penny out of your pocket. Go become somebody in cybersecurity in 6 months and get the certificate. We, the country, will pay. So when we emerge out of this, we have rebuilt America. America never lost a challenge by investing in America and Americans. And that should become the Democratic mantra. It's too much reopening or reluctance and resistance. We have to go, you want reopening? We want rebuilding. Rebuild our infrastructure right now. Rebuild the skills of America. That should be the tone which is affirmative. And I do think that if you have a national crisis, we need a national response, not 50 different responses. And there is an absence of leadership. And that, to me, is what's happening and what's wrong right now out of the White House. Too much energy on conflict, not enough about what it takes to rebuild this country.
Yvette, you're a leader in the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Does that sound like the right message?
I think that's right. I mean, when we talk about how this is going to impact everyday Americans, you're talking about asking people to go back to work when daycare centers are not at full capacity, when kids are still not able to go to school. We're talking about reopening America when people are really concerned about health care and if they contract this disease, whether they're going to be able to get the kind of care they need. You're asking people to reopen when people are still very, very concerned about testing. They're concerned about a vaccine. How far away is that? People can't even get basic PPE. And so what we're hearing people say is, let's focus on making sure we're taking care of people, and then let's make sure that we're shifting our economy after that, right? People first, and then you can start talking about the financial stability of our country.
Sarah Fagan, one of the things we've seen, there does seem to be a little bit of a disconnect between the way many Republican governors out in the country are dealing with, are addressing with this, and what we're seeing from Washington. I'm thinking particularly Governor Mike DeWine of Ohio.
Well, look, I think Governor DeWine has handled this very well. He was very quick to shut down Ohio, but he's also been quick to open it and be smart about it. Look, these two things cannot be in conflict. We do need to open the economy. We do need to keep people safe. We do need to espouse the value of masks and sanitizer and social distancing. And the governors that are doing that, I think, are serving their people very well. And in one of these things that is concerning me as a Republican are these attacks on some of these healthcare professionals like Dr. Fauci. His job is to keep people safe. We should not, as conservatives, be attacking him or anyone serving in government. It is up to our public leaders, our president, our governors, our mayors, to take all the information in balance and then make the right decision for their people. But I agree with Governor Christie. We do need to get this economy going. There's immense suffering, not just on the immediate health front, but all these other societal issues.
So, Governor Christie, we did see this week, we saw Senator Rand Paul get into that with Dr. Fauci at the Senate hearing this week. The president seemed at odds with Dr. Fauci on the issue of schools and how quickly schools can be reopened as well. Is there a danger here for Republicans to be seen taking on the scientific experts?
Well, George, I think the danger is in how you do it. Listen, I have no complaint and argument with Dr. Fauci about what he's saying. That's what his training tells him. That's what his experience tells him. And he should be able to express that openly and inform everyone in the administration and across the country. But he cannot be the final determiner of it. And what I think we're seeing sometimes in the media and in some parts of the Democratic Party is if Dr. Fauci says that that's what we must do. My argument with that is very akin to what Sarah just said, which is Dr. Fauci and his opinions and all the other medical experts are one part of this equation, but they're not the only part of the equation. And I think what you see real working class Americans struggling with right now is they're saying, okay, you want us to continue to stay locked in, but we've got to get our lives going. We're not putting food on the table. Our children are not being educated. And we need to get moving. We don't want to give away a year or more of our lives. So I don't think we should be attacking Dr. Fauci at all for what he's saying. He's saying what he believes based on his experience. But the job of leaders, governors, and the president is to take that as one element of what we need to consider while we factor in all of the other elements and then come to a decision that's reasonable and smart for the totality of the country. And I think especially in the media, George, there's been too much emphasis on, well, if this is what Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx say, then this is what we must do. We didn't elect them president. We didn't elect them governor. Their voices are important, but their voices cannot be determinative.
Yvette, I saw you shaking your head, at least through part of that.
You know, I'm in Ohio, and I want to make sure I respond to what Sarah said. So we reopened on Friday, and automatically people started violating social distancing in restaurants. People were not doing what they were supposed to do. They were not wearing masks. And we have to remember that nearly 100,000 people have died from this disease. Nearly 100,000. That's with social distancing, with staying in place. What do we expect is going to happen with a fast reopening? right? People who are dead, people who have died, are not income producers. They cannot produce income. They are not taxpayers. Building an economy around a strategy where people are dying doesn't sound like a long-term strategy for me. And I don't even believe that people, certainly people that I talk to across the country, have the security to believe that they want to even spend $1. So we're talking about reopening so that people can get haircuts, so that people will go to restaurants. If I don't know whether I can pay rent next month, I'm not going to feel confident enough to spend money. So I think the balance should be on safety first. And so if our medical experts are saying, we're not ready, we're going to see a big spike, we're going to see a resurgence, we're going to all be back locked down in just a few months, and we're going to lose a lot of people in the process. And so I think you do listen to the experts. You continue to do that until we get PPE, nationwide testing, and a vaccine on the horizon.
Rahm Emanuel?
Yeah, what Sarah and Chris have implicitly said is the fact is attacking a doctor or a scientist or a public health, and there's a lot of different opinions there, is a wrong message and a wrong positioning for Republicans. The fact is, and what's absent here, is presidential judgment and presidential leadership. And what I mean by that, if you listened only to the experts, John Kennedy would have had us in a nuclear war, which is what the Joint Chiefs of Staff said during the Cuban Missile Crisis. There is no replacing presidential leadership and judgment to take many different views from across different areas and come up with a set of plans. President Kennedy once said, to govern is to choose between bad and worse. And you need judgment. And what we're doing by holding up Dr. Fauci is somewhat a metaphor, a contrast to the fact that the president is not exerting the type of judgment, leadership, inquiry, asking tough questions. I've never left the cabinet room where there was a decision that was 100% you knew this was the right decision and 100% you knew this was the wrong decision. It is a series of unknown in a fog, and you try to look at data and come up with an idea that looks around the corner and leads America to a better place. And what's absent, and the reason you see Dr. Fauci or other type of scientists, is the absence of any interest in data, medical information, economic information, and coming up with an integrated whole. And Sarah and Chris basically implicitly, by recognizing you shouldn't be attacking Dr. Fauci, the fact is there has been a total void of presidential leadership and using judgment and inquiry to come up with a set of decisions that are not perfect, but are better than what we have today. And that is what we're missing.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.